Hello YouTube. Been a couple weeks I've done a video. Been playing around with a couple different things with my CCNP labs, and thought I would try to do HSRP for you. If you're not familiar with HSRP, it stands for Hot Standby Router Protocol. Basically what that is, you have your VLANs configured, and say you have one of your distribution or core switches goes down, and that one was the one that had your SVI on it, or your VLAN default gateway. If that goes down and you don't have a backup, then you basically lose that VLAN and any other VLAN that would have the SVI on that particular switch. So what you do is HSRP. So if you have two redundant distribution or core switches, depends on how you're going to set up your topology, you would actually set up this HSRP between your two redundant switches, and then when one of them goes down, the other one will actually kind of take over the VLAN SVI. It's kind of a virtual IP address. So it really kind of bounces between the two switches. If one goes down, the other kind of takes over this virtual IP address. And so let's get to it, kind of explain as I go, so you can kind of see how we get this configured and exactly what it does when it fails over. So I'm in my first distribution switch here, DLS1, and I'll show you what we got in here. We actually have 4 VLANs already set up in here. It's just 10, 20, 30, and 40. VLAN 1, I'm actually not even going to mess with, just because it's kind of my management VLAN for my lab, so I can kind of jump in between my different switches and everything else. So I won't even bother putting the HSRP on that one, just so I don't confuse anyone, because my IP addresses are kind of goofy on that one. So we're just going to do 10, 20, 30, and 40, which, as you can see, I have them named CP data, voice, video, and the user VLAN. And when you configure HSRP, you sometimes want to kind of load balance this out. You may want to put odd number VLANs on your DLS1 to make that one be your active switch for that one, and then do like your even number on the other one. And that way it kind of load balances out a little bit, so you're not putting all of the bandwidth and all the utilization on just one switch. So kind of even it out, just so you don't completely kill your other switch. So what we're going to do is actually pretty simple. It's just a few lines. What you're going to do is we'll start with, since I'm in DLS1, like I said, we'll do 10 and 30 as the active for this one, and then we'll make VLANs 20 and 40 what you call the standby. So if the other switch fails, then this one would kick over as the active switch. So we'll go into VLAN 10 here, and we need to give it an IP address. And this is not going to be the IP address that is going to be your SVI. As far as your virtual IP that everything will kind of route to. With these, let's make them. I'll give them some 172 numbers. Let's do 172.16. That's VLAN 10. So let's keep it simple. Do 10 dot. We'll make it. Let's do .2. I'll put it in a /24. So 255.255.255.0. And then what we'll want to do is we're going to give it a standby IP address. And so what we're going to do is you assign it to the group here, standby. You're going to do 1. And you can see it will tell you a group number. And typically you're just going to put it in 1. So then you're going to do standby 1 IP. And this is going to be what your virtual IP address is going to be, that both your switches will be using. And this one I'll put it as .1. So that's our standby IP. So now you want to configure this to actually do what they call preempt. What the preempt does means it'll take over something else fails if the other switch fails, and then when that other switch comes back online, it'll actually hand it back over to the other switch, so it doesn't keep that active role if the other switch comes back up. So we'll do standby 1 because we're going to keep with the same group, and then we're going to do preempt. And now you need to set a priority so you can say this switch is going to be the active switch in the HSRP for this particular VLAN. 100 is your default, and then so you want to set this one, it'd actually be a higher priority on it, which would be typically set to 150, and that will allow this one to be the priority for VLAN 10. So I'll do standby 1. Priority. You have 0 through 255. 0 basically means it would never take over priority. I don't know why you'd really even want to do that, but we'll do 150. And that is done. And what we can do is, so you can see what that one looks like, we'll do a show standby. And you see it's up. And it says VLAN 10, it's in group 1. The state of HSRP for it is showing as active, so this one is handling the VLAN traffic for VLAN 10. And it has your virtual IP address, 172.16.10.1. And it gives you your active virtual MAC address, AC01. So active router is local, standby router unknown because we haven't talked to the other switch yet. We haven't figured that out yet. So while we're in this one, we need to go to VLAN 20, and we're going to configure that one to be the standby. So we're going to kind of do the same thing with this one as we did the other. We're just going to keep the standby though as the default. So we'll do an IP address. And we'll give this the standby of 20.1, standby 1 preempt. We'll just keep it 100. It's by default, but I put it in anyway, just to make sure. So there's that one. Now we'll go to VLAN 30. We want this one to be the active because we're doing the 10 and 30 on this one. So we'll do an IP address 30.3. Actually, it looks like I changed up the IP as to 1.2 on the other one and 3 on this one. We'll change that real quick. If I can type too. It's late. Give me a break. Alright. One IP of 172.16.30.1. We're going to do a preempt. And this one's going to be 150. And let me go back. I'm going to configure VLAN 20 real quick, give it the right IP. Sorry about that. Alright, so now let's go over to VLAN 40. This one's going to be the standby, so this will be priority of 100. So pretty much rinse and repeat like we did with all the other ones. Gets kind of monotonous. That's why I only did 4 VLANs instead of 20 or something, because then you'd be probably asleep by now. I'm going to do 40.2. Almost did again. Alright. We're going going to do the standby 1 IP 172.16.40.1. And we're going to do our preempt and give this the priority of 150. Alright. And now we should see all 4 of them in there. So we have VLAN 10, group 1, has a virtual IP of 10.1. Here's VLAN 20, virtual IP of 20.1. Here's 30.1 for VLAN 30 and 40.1 for VLAN 40. And as you see, all 4 of them are all active because we do not have another switch configured right now. So let's solve that. Let's go over to the other switch, DLS2, and we will configure that one. And you can see there's nothing configured right now. But we do have our 4 VLANs over here, 10, 20, 30, 40. So let's go into VLAN 10. And this one, since we want to be standby, we will configure this to be the priority of 100 instead of 150 like it was on the other switch. And this will be .3. I'll give it a standby 1 IP 172.16.10.1, which is the same thing as it was on the other one. These have to be the same. And then we're going to do a standby 1 preempt. And we want this to be standby, so we'll get a priority of 100. And that one is done. And so now we'll go into our VLAN 20. We want this one to be the active, so we will set it to a priority of 150. .20.1 preempt, so it fails over and goes back, and standby 1 priority 150. And now we have 2 more to go. So we have our VLAN 30. Standby 1 IP of 172.16.20.1. Oh, 30.1, sorry. If I put IP in front of it. That is more better. Preempt. And priority of 100. That one is done. And last but not least, we have VLAN 40. This one we want to be the active, so we'll configure it for a priority of 150. 40.1 for the standby IP. Preempt. Priority of 150, so it's the active. That is done. So now let's do a show standby. And as you can see, VLAN 10 is set to standby. Standby router is local. We have VLAN 20, it's showing as active. So this one, VLAN 20 actually comes up, says standby router is 172.16.20.2, which is DLS1. So they're talking back and forth and they know what each other's priorities are. You have VLAN 30, it's in standby. And you can see there's a state change because it is seeing that DLS1 picked up its priority and started talking to this switch, tells what its priorities are, and switched between the standby to active depending on the priorities, which switch had which. So that 5 times fast. The VLAN 30, that's in standby. Again, it shows the active router 30.2, priorities of it. VLAN 40, it's in standby. 40.2 is the active router. So there we go. That is all configured now. So, now what we're talking about with the failover. What happens if the other switch happens to go down? Well, how about we, to simulate that, let's kill a couple of these VLANs and let it kick over. What we'll do, so you can see the other side. You see this is active for VLAN 10 versus here, it's in standby. VLAN 20 on DLS1 is standby versus DLS2 is inactive. Standby VLAN 30 on DLS2. Active over here on DLS1. Active on VLAN 40. Standby here. So 30 and 40 we have set to standby. Thought I had something set up different on that though. I thought 40 was supposed to be taken over. I might have put my priorities in wrong. Yeah. Okay. No big deal. You guys get how it works though. I'm not going to go back through and try to switch it up. Like I said, it's late. It's 11 o'clock right now doing this, and it's been a long day of work and school. So, let's go to I'm going to go into VLAN 40 since that's active on this one. I'm going to shut it down. Now what we'll do, I will go over to my other switch. And VLAN 40 is now active. It sees that standby router is unknown because it's actually down for that particular VLAN. So it kicked over. So now what happens if we go back over to VLAN 40 here, do a no shut, the preamp should kick in and it should actually put DLS1 back as the active router, and DLS2 will go from active over to standby. So let's look at VLAN 40. Still saying standby. Sometimes it takes a couple seconds for it to finally kick over. Still standby. Active. Semi router 40.2, so it's saying it again. Expires in 9 seconds. Should be pretty close to that now. Come on. Preamp. Okay. taking a sweet time to cut over. You know what, I'm just going to kind of force break it. Usually it should cut over by now. I don't know why it's taking its sweet time on it. It says preemption is enabled, so it should take over. Let's do VLAN 40. We're just going to shut it. And then no shut it. Ah, you see it's in listening, so it's talking to the other switch now. Trying to figure out what to do. Now it's speaking. So as you see, even though it was cut over a few seconds ago, it has to go through its kind of stages in order to negotiate who to be active, who to be in standby. And now it's in standby. And DLS1 is back over into active. So there you go. HSRP is configured and working. Again, I don't know why it took so long for the preamp to take over on it, kick it back over to the switch it needed to be at, but typically, though, it doesn't take that long. So I hope this helps you guys out as far as figuring out how to set up HSRP and setting up your priorities. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to shoot a message on here, respond to the video. Please subscribe. That way it lets me know that people are actually, watching the videos, caring, learning, liking the videos. So, as always, as a good guy on here, FPS Russia says, have a good day.